We are the Ninja Legion, and this is Sticky Floors. I am P-Chan.
I'm the captain.
And I'm Spider.
And tonight we're going to be reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy, which actually came out yesterday.
2 days ago.
Was it 2 days ago?
It's Friday.
Technically
crap.
3 days ago because they had screenings on Thursday. But
Actually, it was 12:01 Friday morning.
I went and saw it at 10:30 p.m.
Really?
There was a 7:30 showing.
Normally they don't do that.
Yeah, they did like early showings.
You know what?
Wow.
They haven't been doing the 12:01 showings as much anymore. They've been pushing them like back earlier and just like.
I was going to say, if anybody would know, it would be Spider.
True.
It's like, oh, they don't make a cotton candy flavored Skittle. And Spider's like, well, no, they do. It was in Korea. I picked up 3 packs. They're limited edition.
All right, moving on.
Just the way he's wired.
I'm not an expert on candy. I know someone who is.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy.
We hate you so much.
I know.
We actually saw it at the Regal today. It stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, was it
David Bautista.
Bradley Cooper and Vin
Diesel's
Diesel.
the voice of Groot.
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro as well.
Yep. The Collector.
John C. Reilly, Nova officer.
Day. Corman Day.
Corman
Thank you.
Day,
And then Michael Rooker as Yondu.
Oh,
which
and
was
let's-
fantastic.
And we're actually missing the only Academy Award winner in the bunch, Glenn Close, as Prime Nova.
Nova
Yep.
Prime.
Or
Yeah.
Nova Prime, sorry.
It was, I enjoyed it. I mean, if I were to put it in overall perspective, it's 2 hours that I thoroughly enjoyed the ride. It had quite a bit of action, and it was hilarious. But it wasn't just stupid slapstick humor. I mean, it had that in there.
Most of it wasn't.
Right.
There was a large chunk of it that was, and that was the part of the movie that I didn't like.
But I think Marvel has done something, Disney has done something that a lot of studios have a hard time doing, and that's taking a relatively unknown title. I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy are not Spider-Man or Captain America.
It's like the Avengers in
Thor.
general.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if you went up to anyone that wasn't a diehard Marvel fan, they have no idea who the Guardians of the Galaxy, or at least this iteration of them, are. I mean, the only reason I know about the Guardians of the Galaxy is because the Infinity Gauntlets in, the 70s? When I was a kid, my dad had the comic books, and I read them. I mean, other than that, or the reboot in, 2008? They're relatively
There was a
unknown.
90s series. Their first ongoing series was in the 90s.
Was it 90s?
Yeah, it was the 90s, and then 2008 was the more recent iteration of it with coming after the Annihilation Conquest line.
But I mean, they've basically put these 5 characters into the limelight. Now they can fully reboot this franchise and go anywhere they want with it. And
Yeah.
that's quite a feat. I mean, to do it right the first time, unlike having to reboot, Spider-Man, having to reboot even Batman at this point, which was DC.
Yeah.
It's being rebooted again after just being rebooted.
Well, the thing to take into consideration with that is that this is Marvel Studios. This is Marvel making a movie of their characters. And so far, Marvel's been successful with all of the ones that they've done that with. Iron Man they did. Hulk was the only one that's kind of questionable with that.
Wait, did they do the? Were they?
They
on
did
their
the
own?
Edward Norton Hulk.
Okay.
Not Ang Lee.
Which was
being-
much
Eric
better
Bana.
than which
Yeah.
was much better than Eric Bana Hulk.
Yeah, Eric Bana.
But
Hulk.
still, yeah.
It
as you
didn't
said,
do as well as they would have liked it to. It still
I
did
still enjoyed
reasonably
it,
well. Yeah,
but-
so did I. Edward Norton's fantastic.
Yeah. it's
The
a
odd
shame
part
he
about
got
it is I
stick up his
didn't
ass.
dislike Eric Bana.
Yeah,
He
it
was doing
just
the best he
it
could
was-
with a
it was-
crap script.
Yeah, also true.
That, and I like Jennifer Connelly better than
Liv
Liv
Tyler.
Tyler.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
anyway,
I mean, overall tone of the movie, it takes these 5 completely separate characters, and it makes them not only individuals, but you get to learn how all of these essentially outcasts become a crew that can work together, a family. I mean, you have Star-Lord, Peter Quill, who is, for all intents and purposes, the leader, but he's as reluctant a hero as you can basically be. He's in it for himself, and he cares, but he cares because he wants to get
He's Sterling Archer.
right. He wants to get
He's a
paid.
bumbling hero that keeps everybody together, but really on his own, he's just a bumbling jackass.
Right,
But he's still lovable.
but he's in it for the money. Rocket and Groot are in it for the money, but Rocket's like the most tactless character in the entire. But he's a master tactician,
It's because he's smart.
Right.
It's because he's so much smarter than everybody else.
and he just doesn't care.
Generally, more intelligent people tend to be less tactful.
If I can blow
Very
it up
true.
or shoot it, I will.
Yeah.
Gamora, played by Zoe Saldana, is the femme fatale, but she's a character that's, I think, the most well-balanced of all the characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy, because she's got multiple angles. She, is Thanos' adopted daughter, and she has worked for the Empire, but she doesn't want to do that, and she's trying to do better. But at the end of the day, she's still an assassin.
Yeah.
I mean, Drax the Destroyer is the only one that's kind of a one-dimensional character when you get down to it, but his name says it all. He is Drax the Destroyer.
And it's funny, he's probably actually the least tactful in the bunch just because he doesn't know any better.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the literal-
They established that
He is extremely literal.
they're literal. They have no concept of figurative speech, which lends to other comedic moments throughout the movie.
Metaphor.
Metaphor. But yeah, his whole character is, I want to kill Ronan.
And he tries really hard to kill Ronan the entire movie. But
Yeah.
essentially, it's all... As much as I like the movie, it felt a little bit like the first Avengers movie did, where it's a platform.
Yeah.
It's introducing Thanos or fleshing the character of Thanos out just a little bit better to lead up to future movies. And sure, it's a pilot for the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, but you still also get that feeling that they're putting certain scenes in or doing certain things just to say, well, this is Thanos. We showed him. This is what he wants. All the Infinity Crystals are what he leads to for something bigger along the way. Which, if you're building franchises, that's not bad, but I don't want to feel like I did sometimes with all the movies leading up to the Avengers, or even the Avengers, where you're holding my hand. I mean, I have the same problem with a lot of games. Sure, the narrative will move itself forward, but I don't want you to feel like you're pushing me towards this end. It should happen naturally.
I can tell you what, and there are going to be, I guess you could call them spoilers in this little segment, but the movie starts off by kicking you square in the nuts.
It's very up-esque.
Well, it is off the bat. It's much more emotional than I expected the movie to be at all.
Right. More emotional than a lot of other Marvel movies have been since, I'll say, like Daredevil, how that started.
And even then, because it was so cheaply done, it just it
That was a throwaway.
it really
Right.
was.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I kind of thought it was a little too sappy of a startup for a comic book movie of this kind of the fact that it's not a group that everybody really knows.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a little like basically it starts off, Star-Lord is with his mother in the hospital. I'm going to leave it at that. And it's really, really sad to start.
And then they roll opening credits, and then it goes the complete opposite direction into slapstick comedy.
Very true, which was I'll give you that. It was unneeded at that point. The comedy was.
It was the slapstick comedy I felt was unneeded entirely. They wanted to let Chris Pratt be Chris Pratt, so they added a bunch of this really goofy comedic stuff that they didn't need to have in there, because there was so much natural comedy in the interactions of the characters that they didn't need the whole Walkman gimmick the entire movie just so he can be funny. And I felt like that was never a Star-Lord thing. Ever in the comics, and they added it for him.
Well, I feel like at this point, if you're introducing a character to a new group of people, he's kind of I put him as this generation's Han Solo almost. And I know that's a bit of a stretch, and I know there will be someone who will want to tear my head off. But he's
excuse me, sir. How can you possibly relate Star-Lord to Han Solo?
But he's essentially this generation's Han Solo. He's the swashbuckling intergalactic thief guy, and he does it well. Chris Pratt wears it well. I never felt like he was forcing it throughout the entire movie.
Well, he didn't have to, because, as Spider said, I mean, they kind of tailored Peter Quill around around him.
I mean, he's
around his acting
classically
style.
been that kind of goofy character. What I love him in Community. That was a hoot. He was
Parks
also.
and Rec.
It wasn't Parks and Rec. You're right. I'm sorry. I said Community.
Oh, question from the studio.
How old is Guardians of the Galaxy as far as a Marvel?
Guardians of the
70
Galaxy were established in the 60s
So,
initially, but they've only made little appearances here and there.
So technically, sir, Han Solo copied off of him.
No, because the character wasn't like that back then.
Here, I would
There were only
suggest that
little,
you're
like-
starting to you're about to start a nuclear war here.
Yeah, there were only not like the Guardians of the Galaxy were bit players throughout early Marvel, and this iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't established until 2008. The original Guardians of the Galaxy was a completely different team. The only person that was in this movie that was an original Guardian of the Galaxy was Yondu.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I am sorry, I was so sorry for this conversation.
Yep.
I will say I did have one slight gripe with the movie. There are like 2 or 3 separate scenes where they go out into space, and Star-Lord has a full face mask. It doesn't cover his entire head, just his face. And there were several scenes where they were out in like zero gravity space, and he had zero protective suit other than his leather uniform and this mask, and somehow no one dies. And at some point I was kind of confused. I was like, well, are they not in actual space? There's some field that doesn't make it open space. Is that what's going on? Maybe I missed some part. And I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure they were just out in open space and for quite a while and didn't die.
Although I do agree with you, I'm going to throw him under the bus. You're being very muddledy about this right now.
I am being very muddledy about this.
Sometimes you just got to shut your brain off and enjoy it. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not something that hasn't been done in lots of other movies that have
No.
taken place in outer space.
Exactly.
So
That's my point.
it's the thing where it's kind of just become like an established sci-fi movie standard where people can survive in space for a little bit.
Every sci-fi director at one point or another has shot Isaac Newton in the head and made his own movie without the laws of physics.
Yeah.
That's true. It bothered me a little bit because at one point they literally acknowledge it and then
Sort
just
of.
just kind of like toss it to the side.
You can't survive out
You
there.
can't, sir. And the funny thing is, it's Rocket who says that. Like, no, you
Yeah.
you can't go out there.
She's already dead.
Yeah, and he does it anyway, and I was like, but space.
Yeah.
But
My
I mean,
major gripe, besides that, and we talked about this before we got in here, was one of the actors, and that's David Bautista as Drax the Destroyer. Apparently, I'm alone on this, but I have to say it. Dave Bautista is the worst actor on the planet currently.
Ooh. That's a bold statement.
Go watch The Man with the Iron Fist and watch him play Bronze Body. It is the biggest piece of garbage you are ever going to see.
his name is Bronze Body.
And granted, don't get me wrong. Does he look the part? Absolutely. Did it take, besides a little blue makeup and some red tattoos, to make him look the part? That was it. So he already had that going for him as far as this role was concerned.
Yeah.
But every time he opened his mouth, all I could hear was, I wish I was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I wish I was a better actor. And granted, Dwayne Johnson's not that good either. I
No.
love him, but he's not that good.
No.
But David Bautista falls short. Now, granted, can I get over it because of how much I did like the movie and how much I love the movie? Yes, it's my biggest gripe, but it's almost a non-factor.
I was just about to
But
say.
it's my biggest gripe. So you guys might not care, but it bothered the hell out of me.
So yeah, I mean at that point we've pretty much all aired our biggest grievance with the movie.
And all of which are really kind of small
Kinda-
grievances.
kinda
really.
petty. Yeah.
My issue is strictly from a comic reader standpoint. If you're a regular person going to see this movie, you're not gonna care that they changed the character.
You won't even know.
Yeah, you won't even know.
And ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'll just think it's funny.
I would like to give a shout out to the soundtrack, whoever arranged that. It's a bunch of really good 70s music.
70s and 80s, yeah.
70s, yes. Was it in the 80s?
Some of it was.
What was 80s?
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think there was any. It had what, Cherry Bomb in it.
That was
Yeah,
the
that was
70s.
very 70s.
Yeah,
It had
I might be
Jackson 5.
Jackson 5.
That was definitely 70s.
Hooked on a Feeling, which everyone knows
Yeah, everybody knows.
because the commercial, the trailer.
It's just a really good soundtrack.
Although that did raise the other kind of like continuity like issue in that he's using a cassette tape for like 30 years and
Yeah.
he didn't wear it out.
I had the same thought. I'm like,
And
that-
where was he finding like AA batteries in space to power that Walkman?
Well, I'm sure you find some alternative battery powering
Yeah, but cassette tapes wear out. Like,
Yes, they do.
Say, eventually that thing would have turned into a knot.
yeah, pretty much.
It happened to all of us at one point or another.
That's how cassette tapes do.
But was there anybody else who saw the cassette player and had a little flutter? Like, oh, I remember my first cassette player. It was amazing.
I didn't, because that was one of the things that bothered me with the movie. Like I said earlier, was just that added element that I felt was unnecessary.
It did get away with a little bit as far as profanity went.
Yeah.
For its PG-13 rating, I will say that. Now I'm feeling old, but it got away with quite a bit.
You do know in a PG-13 movie they can have like 3 F-bombs now?
Is it up to that now?
It's at least one, I know that, but
I don't think they used half an F-bomb.
they said
I don't
I don't
think
know
they didn't use one F-bomb, but they used
they didn't.
Like I said, they
Yeah,
used
yeah.
half.
But and that was one of the things, because I actually went and bought the little Rocket Raccoon plush that they have.
Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I was at Toys R Us, and the woman at the counter was like, "Oh yeah, my son really wants to go see this. You know, what do you think?" I'm like, "Well, how old's your son?" And he's like, "Oh, he's 8." And I'm just like, "Well, I'll just let you know. Like, it's up to you. You're the parent to make the decision, but there is a bit more profanity in it than you'd expect from, you know."
And that's definitely
that
something you don't
movie.
consider till you get a certain age. And I was like, I'd love to take my little brother to see this, but I'm like, I don't know if I could, in good conscience, sit him through it.
There was a lot of sexual innuendo. There wasn't a lot of outwardly sexual things, but there's comments that are made throughout the movie that, as an adult, you pick up. As a kid, you probably wouldn't notice.
No.
Like the comment about the Jackson Pollock painting.
With a
Like,
black
if,
light.
yeah, if we took a black light in here, it would look like a Jackson Pollock painting. And I was just like, okay. And then the violence in this movie was a little bit more intense than most of the Marvel movies.
It was, but it was always, like, complemented by something that was almost made you giggle.
Yeah, like...
There's a specific scene with Gru. Again,
Groot.
spoiler.
Yeah.
Groot. I'm sorry. I'm thinking Gru the barbarian.
Yeah.
But with Groot, where he runs a bunch of these soldiers through, like 10 or 15 of them through the chest, and then for probably 12 seconds, just slams them against every surface in this hallway.
Other people and...
Right, the wall, and then just drops and just gives the cheesiest smile ever. And it made me giggle, but on the other hand, I was like, that scene went on really long.
That smile was the smile. It was the cat that ate the canary smile. It was
Yeah.
it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, talk about there was quite a bit, but you really didn't see a whole lot of blood and gore.
No,
No.
and
Comparatively,
that's how
so-
they get away with it. The same thing with the Pirates movies.
Right.
Yeah.
They got away with all the violence that was in those movies because there was no blood to it.
And notice when they did, they were faceless
Yeah, they're always the faceless alien enemies that they
with green blood.
green blood. I mean, they broke necks.
Yeah.
Oh
They
yeah.
straight up snapped people's necks in the movie.
Yeah, actually, towards the end, or well, about 2/3 across, when Ronan comes and he's talking to Thanos face to face,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
throws his hammer and snaps
Well,
his
when
little
they were
whelps.
doing the even when they were doing the prison breakout
Yeah.
thing, they did that there.
Well, look at what Groot did to the one prisoner when he stuck the two roots up his
Oh,
nose.
Yeah.
Like that was actually kind of
Pretty-
hardcore
yeah.
for, and we actually had two probably 6 and 7
I
year
was
olds
about to
sitting
say,
behind us.
right behind us.
Like that's a little hardcore for them to be looking at.
Yeah, so the violence got ramped up a little bit, and then like the whole like needle and we'll get too spoilery if we keep
Right.
kind of not that. But there's another scene where like there's like the needle in the chest thing that was also pretty intense.
Like I said, I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't recommend it. And they say PG-13. I believe at this point they mean PG-13.
13,
I wouldn't
yeah.
send anyone under 13 or take your child to watch it without any parental guidance whatsoever. But it was a great for a summer blockbuster. I will highly recommend it. I might go see it again. It was that good to me.
Yeah, no, I greatly enjoyed it. I mean, I definitely think it's worth the ticket price.
Oh yeah.
For me, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I was very negative about the movie before it came out because they were playing it off too slapsticky. I felt in the trailers.
But you were negative about something? That's new.
Well, it's one of those things where I read the comics, so I want them to maintain the integrity of those characters.
Correct.
And I feel like they did a very good job of that. Groot was spot on. Rocket was spot on with the exception of him not using his catchphrase, but I understand why.
That bugged the living crap out
He
of me.
needed to go at least one time. I just murdered you.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Which was a little disappointing.
We can throw a bub
but
in the Wolverine movie, but we can't get a
yeah,
murder.
but otherwise, like Rocket was perfect because he was super intelligent. He could create these ridiculous weapons out of just like scrap pieces. He was a great tactician. Like they got his character right, and the fact that he's not a raccoon.
Technically, he's not, yeah.
Because he's not.
Yeah.
In the comics, he's not a raccoon.
No.
He just looks like a raccoon. So the point where, like, he gets called a raccoon, he's like, what's a raccoon?
And then Drax is like, we've had their flesh. It's quite tasty.
Not helping.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So they do him really well. Gamora's was pretty good. She talked a bit more in this than she does in the comics generally.
But I figure with an A-lister like Zoe Saldana, you kind of
Yeah.
have to. Kind of the way they threw Halle Berry in all the X-Men movies. They gave her, like, too many lines.
Yeah.
Y-
But, yeah, because of... of the actual physical cast, she was kind of the biggest one.
yes.
Like, so, because you have Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, but they're just doing voice work.
Correct.
But they absolutely stole the movie anyway.
Yes.
Rocket and Groot were the stars of that movie without question.
I'm not going to be surprised if there's a Rocket and Groot movie. I mean,
Yeah.
like, maybe if it's a little B-rate, CG, just kind of straight to
Spin-off
DVD. Like a lot of the new Batman movies and stuff. Something
Yeah,
like that.
straight to DVD.
I would not be surprised at all. I actually kind of hope for one because I
I
think
would
it'd be great.
enjoy the crap out
Well,
of it.
Marvel just launched a standalone Rocket Raccoon series
So
now,
hopefully
and it's
Groot-
going to be Rocket and Groot because the
Yeah.
first panel because you can't do Rocket without Groot.
Without
really.
Groot, no.
Like they're a package deal. But yeah, they did justice to that.
I love the fact that Rocket keeps translating for Groot.
Because that's how it works in the comics too. Because
Yeah.
nobody understands what Groot. All they hear is "I am Groot,"
Yeah.
but Rocket knows what he says, and they did that right. And I really
That was-
love that they did
yeah,
that. They
it was
maintained
That
that.
entire conversation.
Yeah,
What do you mean it's better than 11%? What does that even mean?
the
They are
interaction
ungrateful.
between those two characters was done perfectly, and it definitely redeemed itself from what I initially thought the movie was going to be, based on how they were advertising it.
And actually, speaking of those two, the animation for those two was done incredibly well.
Very
Yes,
Incredibly. Like, Rocket actually had real facial expressions. It was awesome.
well. No,
yeah, he did, and like just the way all the plant matter and stuff came out of Groot, and the way it all
Oh,
textured and looked was.
awesome.
They did a fantastic job with it.
I will say the sheer scope of the movie was excellent, but with the limited amount of sets I felt they worked with, they did a really good job. Because when you think about it, as far as set pieces goes, there wasn't a lot,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was really well done.
alien slums,
Alien slums, a prison,
the ship,
space.
spaceship.
Yeah, I mean they were really well done.
spaceship.
Sometimes I feel like they try to do way too much,
yeah.
and it kind of convolutes it.
And we mentioned the whole framing and setting up Thanos thing, but Thanos, that reveal when they show full body everything, and they even got like the smile right because Thanos has a very distinct smile in the comics.
That smug.
Yeah, and they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. I'm looking forward to see more of Josh Brolin as Thanos because he's a fantastic
Yes,
actor.
he was.
And one thing I like is
Is.
that they didn't alter his voice too much.
No.
But one thing I kind of wish they did was maybe alter it just a little bit more to give a little more oomph behind it.
A little more alienness to him.
I mean, just no, because Thanos is essentially the strong. He's a god more or less.
basically.
So, and you would expect him to have, so not, you know what I mean, but like bass behind it, not actual
Yeah.
bass, but
A little more booming.
to be
sure
able
as
to,
it-
yeah, boomingness. Thank you.
I'm sure as it progresses, he will kind of temper it a little bit before he
Before
becomes a main villain.
So like
'Cause there's
Avengers
always
3.
Right, a little bit more of an evolution.
Yeah.
So that kind of always gets me. It's like, oh, Thanos, the first, villain, and then like second movie, it's Ultron. Like they're related. I was like, oh, okay, but how can you do
But,
that without a
Yeah, they're
Ant-Man?
jumping. Yeah, they're jumping around a bit on that.
Yeah, but if they can do if the execution's done well, I won't even gripe.
And the only other thing that I was kind of iffy about was that they really played down the Star-Lord thing, because Star-Lord is called Star-Lord for a reason in the comics, and in the movie it's kind of just like a nickname that he had. Like his mom called him that, and then he just kind of called himself that, and everyone's like, what's Star-Lord? Until people started like after he went around and caused enough mischief, and they're like, Star-Lord, and he's like, yes.
Thank you.
Now, but they did set up in the movie to reveal why he's called Star-Lord.
Right.
Because they mention him not being all Terran or human.
Right.
And that's part of his character in the comics, is that he's half human, half alien.
Well, they even, in the very first scene, his mother says his father was an angel composed entirely of light.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the first part of the foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I mean, at first you might think it's just the ramblings of a crazy person on chemo, but turns out.
Yeah. But it gets there. All right, so I think we need to
I'll go ahead and
wrap
say
this thing up.
recommending. I definitely recommend it. Go see it. I didn't see it in 3D, so I don't know how to really rate that, but I would say nonetheless, go see Guardians of the Galaxy.
Definitely go see it. I can't stand 3D movies, massive headaches, so can't say anything on that either. I think it's worth the price point as long as your theater doesn't charge you $20 to go see a movie.
Yeah.
But if you're like standard $10, worth every penny to go see it.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely go see it. I didn't see it in 3D either. I also don't like 3D movies.
F3D.
I've heard from other people that the 3D was done very well. It didn't feel too forced. It wasn't all the super like jump out at you kind of generic 3D crap that they do. But I could see scenes in the movie where with the 3D would have kind of popped a little bit more.
Especially a lot of the prison scene.
Yeah, a lot of the prison stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
I can see that.
yeah, they were able to turn me around on it with what I initially thought. So yeah, it's good.
See, kids,
And that's a
miracles do happen.
success.
Yeah.
In our book, that's a success.
That is.
Yeah, if you can get me from going, oh man, this looks so bad, I don't think I want to do it, to actually, no, it was a good movie.
That's a first.
Actually, for a while, it wasn't even, I don't think I want to see it. You were dead set against this thing. You
Yes,
said you
you
were still
were.
going to go see it, but you're like, I'm going to hate it.
Yeah.
Those words came out your mouth, and you know what? It's a win.
They
It's a win.
actually did it justice. They just advertised it in a way to appeal to the lowest common denominator.
It's no
Somewhere a
wonder
meteor spinning
that
toward
we
Earth.
have actually had cold weather.
True. Very true. Well, this has been Sticky Floors. Thanks for joining us at the Ninja Legion. I am P-Chan.
I'm the captain.
And I'm Spider.
Have a good night.